3rd. The mayor put out the 8-year, $1.4 billion levy proposal. So that's great. The number's a little bit higher than originally talked about. So that's really wonderful. Let's see. On a smaller scale, in our team, the Neighborhood Greenways program and the Healthy Streets program hosted 5 Bike Everywhere events that were really successful. So that's great. People were out and about in the streets using their healthy streets and neighborhood greenways. And on an even more local scale, our position, the Safe Routes to School program manager position, was approved by the mayor. So that's great. So there's a pathway to have that position filled, which is wonderful. I'm a little underwater right now because we don't have that position nor an intern, but I was able to get a colleague to help. For instance, she did wrap it up. She finished the intersection scoring for the walk boundary stuff. So that's great. Let's see, what else? I think that's about it. We updated the flashing beacons, so that's great. The schedule for summer school, as we talked about before. Nothing else. That's about it.
Okay, do you want to share that, Jenna, now that you're on 2 screens? Oh, yes, Marianne.
Oh, I just want to highlight again, how great it has been last year and this year to see SPS and SDOT, making those flashing beacons for summer school happen. Mm-hmm. That's, taken work on both ends, and it was something that took so many years wasn't able to be pulled off. So I just want to say congratulations and thank you. That works really fantastic.
Yeah, really great. Thank you for your work supporting it. Okay, so I can share the agenda now. Let's see. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay, now we're up to the retreat update from Mary Ellen and Margaret.
Yes. Just before that, just wanted to make sure that everybody saw the email that our June meeting is gonna happen as scheduled, in person in City Hall or online. The SDOT staff is not able to join in July, and we got a request for a presentation from the ACICORS redesign team. So we'll be meeting in June.
Yeah, so that means the retreat is happening in July. And we had settled, I think we had agreed we would do it during our normal slot, correct? And Margaret has generously offered the space at her, near her house again. So I think there's not that much to plan, but maybe we want to make a list of topics and, kind of email it around, or if people want to just text me, or we could make an agenda and try and make sure that we're focusing on where where do we want to head in the future, and making it a productive meeting. So I think it's pretty well set. Everybody should bring a snack or two and send me and or Margaret discussion topics that you'd like to have, because for once we get to do it out of the public eye, so we can really say what we mean. So
well, on that note, just because of the Open Public Meetings Act, we will have to advertise that the retreat is happening. Similar to last time, I won't share the address or phone number, but maybe contact information so that somebody, if they want to attend, can attend. I don't think that's going to be an issue, but technically we have to make sure that all our T's are crossed and I's are dotted.
I thought the whole point of the retreat was that you could have one planning session that wasn't public a year. Isn't that?
I mean, I think that's
not that it really matters for us, but
yeah, but just technically it still has to be open to the public.
Okay. Margaret, have I missed anything talking about planning that?
No, I think you got it all. So it's, I'm just double checking, it's gonna be at this the normal third Friday, 8:30 to 10:30, is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's what we had all said works best. And so since it's gonna be in July.
Yeah, I can, provide coffee and whatnot. Coffee and treats and stuff.
Thank you
Wait,
so
so
much
does
for
that make
hosting.
it the 19th of July?
I think so. Let's see.
That's what it looks like to me, yeah.
Yes.
I have just realized I will be on an airplane flight back from my niece's wedding that day.
Oh dear.
Hadn't put that together, but still, the retreat can happen.
Well, if you're not going to be there and nobody from SDOT could be there, should we consider scheduling?
Yeah, I think we should move this discussion, to email. We can
Okay.
schedule via email. I can put out like a quiz
Doodle
where
poll.
people can put in their availability.
Okay, we're plowing through the agenda way faster than I thought, way faster. Mary Ellen, do you want to talk about the walk zone boundary subcommittee?
Yeah, I mean, so as Diane said, we had to cancel this month because of lack of, it can be kind of worky to put through all the intersection scoring, but I'd say overall we're making really good progress. The intent had been to meet, say, quarterly on an ongoing basis, but we found that, because we are behind on it and we wanted to get a start, we've been meeting once a month. So we started with the schools in Southeast Seattle and are kind of working our way up and around, which is the same order that they did it in last time that they were done. And I joined about a third of the way through last time. So that was 7 years ago. So it's been about 8 years since these ones that we're working on now have been reviewed. Overall, we've been finding that, the maps are pretty good. There are some inconsistencies between what SPS has in their system and what SDOT maps that are publicly visible are showing. So we're noting those to get them corrected. We found a number of spots where the maps are limited to the school assignment boundary. And after quite a bit of debate, we decided we were going to look at the full 1 mile walk shed because we expect those assignment boundaries may be in quite a bit of flux as SPS is considering closing. Now they've announced, 20 or more schools, so that the walk maps themselves won't need to be updated regardless of what happens to the assignment area around the school. We're finding in Southeast Seattle, SDOT has done a lot of work over the last 8 years. And so we've been happy to see that a number of places that seemed, that didn't seem great last time around seem to be much better now, are scoring much lower. And we've still been zeroing in with our new rubric, which was intended to pull out some of the nuance of like, the road is only 2 lanes, but people speed a lot. And so it's not the same. That, I think that is effective, but also we're kind of, seeing we might need to fine tune it a little more. There are still sometimes intersections we look at where our impression of what this should be scoring isn't matching what we see in the number. So we've been kind of fine tuning what we consider the cutoff threshold for where a crossing guard might be needed. And then it's been really good to coordinate, you know, with Brooke and with Yvonne and look at these crossing guard positions, because it does, we're finding that there are a number of positions that maybe we don't need anymore and they're vacant. You know, they haven't been operational, but conditions on the ground have changed. You know, the streets are better, where the kids are coming from has changed. And so some of these positions don't seem to make sense. So we've been looking with Yvonne at maybe we take some of these off the map and they really aren't necessary anymore. So good to get that all sorted through. Brooke and Ryan, do you guys, what am I missing?
I think that's a good summary. We continue to look at how do we move faster. We had a bit of trepidation about how to handle what might be more and rapid changes, and that was before the school discussion. When that was sort of the school discussion of what might be closures was a little bit theoretical. I think it's getting less theoretical, and obviously going to have a multi-year impact if those changes go through. So I think just continue to look at ways that we can sort of accelerate the review is an opportunity. I'm really scared, right? If, for example, if there were, 20 some, or actually probably more than that, school boundaries that changed all of a sudden.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Marianne, you said that you closed some open positions for crossing guards.
Mhm.
Do you have a sense of how many?
Well, you know, we're still, you know, we're still in Southeast Seattle, so we're still, you know, have maybe 80% of the schools left to look at. And we're still working with Yvonne to verify, because she's not always available on Fridays. But yeah, 3 or 4, I think that we're looking at not being needed. One, we want to move. We don't think it was needed as an old spot. And then, yeah, maybe a handful that we think we can eliminate permanently.
And the next subcommittee meeting will be after the announcement of which schools will be closed, right?
Yes. We expect so. That's what, you know, depending on whether they announce it or not.
Yeah, well, based on the assumed schedule of June 10th announcement.
I'd say it's
June
been
10th
really
is the
good.
criteria for which schools will be closed, just to be precise, right? It's not necessarily a list.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll still have some guessing game.
It has been good to be going through this with Stephen in the meetings, because he's looking at how changes would affect the busing. And there have been, you know, a handful of spots where we've realized, oh, well, there are these 2 blocks out at the edge. They could be in the walk zone, they could not. And, you know, so it's been really great to have more info on what sort of an impact this would have on the busing system to the school if we made changes like that. That's really helpful. And we did find one area where, unfortunately, there's a whole chunk of kids where the walk distance was just too far. There had been an assumption, I think, the last time, that they could cut through this sort of like electrical easement that's there, but they can't. They have to go around. So there are some changes like that that are going to impact buses, but hopefully, you know, make it a better and more equitable situation for the kids starting next year. Yeah. But they're going to be, it's interesting to think about all of those school closures, because that's going to, you know, like the current bus layout just like wiped off the map, right? I mean, yeah, it's going to be starting from scratch. Fortunately, the walk boundaries at least will be ready, hopefully.
Anything else to add about the walk boundary? Okay, let's move on to committee membership updates.
Yeah, so I reached out to Lean Trang, and also got to talk to Bill Laborde about it. And it sounds like the city council process for adding another official member is not actually as cumbersome as we were thinking. It would probably take about 8 weeks, from the time that we had already sort of figured out who we wanted, like what that role was, and could make and had drafted the kind of amendment to the resolution. It would be about 8 weeks from that point on, for them to approve it. So that's great. I think from the position of how we want to, whether or not we want a WashDOT member to join, I think we might need a little bit more of a reason and a connection to that person, but that's something for us to discuss in the committee membership meeting that we have, or the subcommittee meeting. So we need to sort of figure out who might be interested in the first place, and if there's more of a reason for them to join apart from kind of the one John Stanford issue. Well, I suppose there's Concord Elementary too, but with the freeways, I think there probably needs to be a little bit more of a reason. But we haven't discussed that yet. We have not met actually yet. I put out, I sent an email to Margaret and Brooke to schedule a meeting. We haven't solidified a time to meet yet. So this is just updates from my side, from SDOT. The other thing is that there's a little hesitancy to add a minor in an official capacity to our group. So we might consider making that person 18 and above. They have a Seattle Youth Commission already for people who are younger than 18, so they can figure out all the kind of legal issues involved there. So we could, the next step for me is to reach out to the Seattle Youth Commission and see if maybe there's somebody who's already involved in that commission who might be interested to join our group, maybe on a semi-regular basis. That's an option for us to explore. Another option is to have like quarterly invitations to students so that it's not too hard for them to be out of class, or on a case-by-case basis, depending on what kind of issues come up. So anyway, we have not yet met to explore any of these things, but I've just been poking around to see what's possible. It seems like we probably could make a case of all the committees and boards. We could make a case for adding a member who's under 18 because of our specific focus. So we probably still could pursue that if we're interested. There are just some logistical issues to consider too, with school being during our meeting time. But things to work out. So I'll put out a few more dates, Brooke and Margaret, and we can chat about it. And then I think reach out to maybe some folks in WashDOT to see what their interest level is. Sounds like we have a few people who are in the active mobility, safe routes to school kind of program who might be interested. But we should probably think about beforehand what those key issues are and why they might want to be part of our committee.
I will add, I did connect with Charlotte Claybrook briefly at the Cascade Bike Everywhere breakfast and put the feelers out of like, hey, we have this committee. We're looking for maybe a representative from active transportation at WashDOT. And she encouraged us to attend the Washington Safe Routes to School Leadership Network meetings, which happen every other, or I think it's actually once a month on Wednesdays, because WashDOT does seem to be investing some of their time and resources into building that work group up. So that was kind of the response I got from her right off the bat, was like, oh, well, have you thought about, sending kind of like delegates or members to that group, which I do attend regularly. But if anyone else would be interested in joining, that'd be great. I think maybe Margaret has in the past. But yeah, does not help fill our seat. But that was the response I got.
It doesn't help fill our seat, and it doesn't get at the specific issues that we are attempting to get at with the position, which is not broad statewide. Connections are awesome, and I'm completely supportive. But we are much more interested in someone who has authority to make specific adjustments to specific locations where we are experiencing specific traffic safety issues. So that's really more of the role that we want.
So I was thinking, does it make sense, while there are not youth at school, as we talk about here in the committee, but would a Get Engaged position make sense?
That's what I was just about to suggest, particularly if it was someone who'd come up through schools in Seattle.
Yeah, I think they have to be 18 through 25 or 19 through 25, something like that. Yeah. Yeah, that's another option to explore for sure.
Yeah, and then we'll be a little bit easier with both school schedule and I assume legalities of including minors.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Wait, you said Get Engaged? I'm not familiar with this.
Get Engaged is a program to engage young adults in city leadership. So there are several committees and commissions that have a spot for people between, is it 18 to 25 or 20 to 25?
It's 18. I think it's actually 18 to 29, but the intent is that skews towards post high school. I think a number of the members are college students or grad students.
Yeah, so other boards have those positions already.
Mm-hmm.
I was once a Get Engaged member. Not of this.
And see how they got you.
Nice.
Get engaged and now you cannot disengage.
Exactly. It's very effective that way.
Okay, well, I think that's about it from my perspective. I think we'll just set up a meeting and we can discuss this more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I assume the adding a Get Engaged position would be just the same process, 8 weeks once we have everything that we need if we choose to move forward with that.
Yeah, it's just the cycle because we'd have to present the idea. Actually, an idea that the board had was presenting the idea when we share our annual report. So it's on folks' radar beforehand. That might kind of simplify the process a little bit, but still it'll take about 8 weeks. But with a Get Engaged membership position, that's already pretty well established too. I don't think anybody's going to blink an eye. So yeah, I think it's a pretty straightforward process.
And do we have any updates on recruiting for Marilyn's position?
No, not yet. There's still, because the other boards and commissions are still going through their processes, Aline is sort of waiting for folks to be confirmed in those committees and boards, and then we're interviewing the other folks. So we have not yet done interviews, but I'll keep you posted.
So we have applicants, but they're kind of in a holding pattern. Is that what I'm understanding?
We don't have applicants for our particular school traffic safety committee. They're applicants for things that are related to for the bike board, the ped board. We missed the window for the open call. So now we're using internal candidates. So if there's somebody, if you all have people in mind, please encourage them to apply. I think there is here, I can get more information and send it along. That spot is open.
There's a thing that said, there's an opening in the school traffic safety committee, and I sent it to some people. I mean, I can't guarantee that those people applied, but some of them sounded like they wanted to.
So then, yeah, they're filtered through as well. I have not received any information from Aline yet.
Okay.
Yeah, we missed a window of open recruitment, and this is just kind of general open, I guess, no, we didn't miss the window. The open recruitment process is happening. We missed the like big push for all of the committees and boards with all of the sort of public messaging around it. But yes, we're still getting applications. I have not seen any of that yet. I can ping Aline for more information. But I think her position expired in April, and is she on this call?
She's not.
Okay. All right, so we also need somebody to take on the role of secretary, correct?
Yeah, well, I'm taking notes today,
Okay.
but moving forward, I'm not a particularly great note taker. So if anybody else is thrilled about taking notes.
Right.
Hey, this is Kelsey. I'd be happy to be the secretary.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the easiest filling position that I've seen. Thank you, Kelsey. Okay, any other thoughts about committee memberships?
One other quick thought that I'll discuss more with Brooke and Margaret is considering removing the SDOT position as official member, similar to the other boards and committees having an SDOT liaison instead of, so that somebody in that position can be a little bit more effective. I do feel like wearing both hats isn't great for me to be very active as a member. So that's just another thought that I'll put out there.
That's an
You
interesting
elaborate on
thought.
that?
Do we have any, I mean, I suppose we probably don't. Do we have any history or background on how that's been managed in the past? Because
So other boards and commissions don't have an SDOT member.
Right.
They're all the SDOT liaisons. So I think because this group is a little bit unique in that it was just kind of a number of professionals and, active parents and PTA members who were interested in working together. It was sort of like a working group that didn't really come up. And now that it's become a little bit more official, it's just something to consider.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, because I guess it was built into the structure at some point, and the structure can change. I'm not, fixated on that. And one of the things that I have experienced with this board, and I think it's also what you're saying as opposed to other boards, is that by having multiple representatives of multiple agencies sort of as active parts of the boards, people who feel like they can engage rather than just being, a liaison, a note taker sort of person. I feel like that's been part of the reason that we've been able to be effective. And so I just want to sort of make sure that we don't unintentionally disable SDOT's confidence and ability to engage on a problem-solving level, as opposed to just a supportive level, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do see that. Yeah, I mean, I think there are pros and cons to both. We can explore this more in a separate meeting, but yeah, I think this is a very unique committee. It's not like the other boards and commissions. I think having active membership so that we can work through things together in a collaborative way makes a lot of sense. But also there is this kind of, it is strange to be both the liaison and a member. There's reasons why that's a little bit awkward too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in that one of the things that's appealing to me about this committee is that I almost view it more as a working group of the various agencies and community volunteers, rather than an advisory commission, which most of the other commissions are, right? I could understand the distinction that you're calling out if it was a citizens advisory committee.
Right.
I very
Right.
much understand the concern there. I just want to highlight that I think there is some advantages to this more unique structure. And would love to understand concerns that you would have in your role, and there's any ways that we can help mitigate that.
Yeah, I think it's when I'm involved, I'm representing SDOT in a lot of ways. So like even approving doing all of the membership duties, like, oh yep, it's me, it's SDOT approving, being on board with whatever we decide as a committee. It just feels slightly strange. There's just a piece of that. I don't know how to explain it better than that. But I think you're absolutely right. I think this is more of a working group, and I feel fine with the structure the way it is. It's just something to consider especially if we want to maintain the same number of committee members and then just replace that position with a WSDOT or again engaged member. Just an option to think about.
I guess I would just say, I don't want to put you in an awkward spot, which I know sometimes we do, when we're pushing for things. But we have appointed members from Seattle Public Schools, from the police department, from Metro. I think if we take SDOT off, we start to jeopardize our whole way of working here, right? Which is the idea that there will be appointed people who do this as part of their job in addition to the volunteers. So.
And we were having, you and Sarah calling. Was that a little more comfortable because she could be one aspect of SDOT and you could be another? Is that sort of a way to do it, or?
Yeah, I think Ryan's distinction of the difference between our committee and then the advisory boards is a good one, just because I feel like in a lot of ways on the bike board, for instance, the bike board is holding SDOT accountable to a lot of their, bike master planning efforts, for instance. It's not quite the same thing with this, but there is like some component of that as well. So it's just a strange position to be in. But I think we're navigating it okay, and this is so niche and unique that I think it's nice to move forward with. Just a thought, just like trying to keep on thinking about how to streamline things, make them work well, and change things up. But we also don't have to at all. It was just something to put out there.
Okay, any other?
One thing that might be helpful for us to think about as an overall committee is that we've had some sort of, I've noticed already that there's some informal things that are logical and make sense about subcommittee structures or who is actually signing and writing on a letter, right? The things that we can do as community members that would be not appropriate for perhaps people from some of the different departments, right? There might be some way to think about how we sort of structure and talk about what work we do as committee and what are some things that we do as community volunteers, and be able to make a sort of distinction. For example, I don't expect Diane to represent an official SDOT position, right? That's sort of obvious to me. But yeah, I can also see how that might not be obvious to a broad member of the public, right? She's bringing information forward from SDOT. She's conveying concerns back. She also has an opinion as a citizen as well. But there might be some way to think about what are some of the types of things that we do as a committee where it is appropriate for us to take on, about talking about advocacy actions, right? That obviously would not be as appropriate for people in some official capacities to be doing that work. I like this. Basically, what I'm getting at is I sort of like the structure of it, but I hear the concern, and I also echo the concern about not wanting to fundamentally change the structure for any of our members who sit in SPS, in the police department, in Metro. I don't think the concern is exactly unique to SDOT.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think we, a similar example is what we had in discussion of the automated enforcement payments and tickets, and kind of like what is the how do we navigate conversations about a specific agency and our ideas about what's best way to move forward as a committee.
And I just want to say I was extremely impressed with Officer Gary's way of handling that in that discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yes.
And I do have an update. I don't know if you guys have heard. The agreement between the city and SPOG has kind of, I think, solved that problem. They have opened up the approval session to civilians. So the city and the SPOG came to an agreement on body of work issues. The SPOG is going to maintain at least 5 positions to do that for the people that are doing that now. But in the future, it is going to be open up to citizen enforcement. Like, I mean, you can have somebody that's parking enforcement, or so they have come to an agreement in this latest contract that we just signed.
That's great.
So
I saw that.
Yeah, it's no longer a fight, and I don't know. I mean, I brought it to our union. I didn't have any part of the negotiations or so, but it was something that we talked about, and they came to some agreement, and hopefully moving forward. So,
Mary
That's
Ellen.
fantastic news. Thank you for sharing that. I had not seen it, but that's really great news. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, thank you. And speaking of updates, Gary, I don't know if you have the information, but since Marnie is not here, do you know if there's any update on the stop paddle tickets?
I haven't heard anything about the stop paddle tickets, whether we're grabbing more of that or not. Yeah, I don't know if that's who that's being talked through. Yeah.
Okay. Any other points for discussion about it? About committee memberships and representation and. Okay. Ryan, do you want to share with us your outreach efforts?
Sure. Just give a brief update. I was able to meet with Councilmember Saka and his constituent staff member, his constituent support, and had a good discussion. Mostly, I just want to introduce the School Traffic Safety Committee. Councilmember Saka wasn't sort of yet aware of the committee's work, so I just gave him a brief overview of what we did. He was very appreciative. And I mentioned that we shared the annual report, and mentioned that we look forward to reporting out to his transportation committee again for the specific issue involved with the code changes. Shared some of the examples, including there was one in Councilmember Saka's in my district with Alki Elementary. He was sympathetic to concern as an example of a way to improve the sort of efficiency and smooth process. And I followed up with him and his staff with the specific land use code updates, with a request to be able to outreach to understand a little bit more about the process of the status of getting those updated. So it was a good discussion. Didn't ask for any particular sort of commitments or indications of support, just mostly about the committee, but I did get a good offer follow-up, so I took up the offer. And then also, of course, was advised, as I expected to hear, to really make sure that we're doing outreach with Councilmember Morales and the other members of the Land Use Committee, of course, that needs to come up and through. So it was a good educational discussion session. So what I'd love to understand a little bit more, sort of where we have some opportunity to do some outreach to some of the council members. I know Margaret said she'd reached out to Joy already, who's the Vice Chair of Transportation Committee, but not. I don't know if we've done any outreach to the members of the Land Use Committee and/or their staff. So that's what I'd like to discuss, particularly if we have anyone in District 2 or connection with Councilmember Morales as the chair of the Land Use Committee.
And Margaret, correct me if I'm wrong, but I vaguely remember that the committee did reach out to Morales and heard nothing back.
I guess I could search my email. I don't think I'm not in her district, and I don't know that I did.
We did, but we haven't since the most recent election round. We've reached out previously, heard nothing back, but we've been shepherding this for quite a while, and yeah, we've not currently has anybody reached out. Do we don't have any members who live in her district? No.
So I was trying to look quickly where people were from, but has anyone also done any outreach with Councilmember Strauss?
Yeah, well, so again, not very recently, but he was the council member who originally, took this up and moved it forward. So he is definitely completely familiar with the issue.
Yep.
I'm not sure. Maybe I should try and get a meeting with him just to keep it fresh. But I also don't, my last communication with him was, yes, 100% on board. Definitely doing it. So I don't want to bug him,
Yeah. Well, I'm in his district. I can offer a nudge. I was supposed to reach out to him about that and about some work at Adams Elementary, but I kind of put it on hold. And now that issues around Adams have been solved, I could reach out to him about that.
Yeah, I think it would be useful to understand if this is he still the Vice Chair of the Land Use Committee, and he was previously the chair. It would be helpful to understand if there's maybe a staff or a connection with Councilmember Morales or her staff, that just to see if this is something that the committee could think about as a future agenda item, or even when it might be ready to be reviewed by the committee. Would be sort of useful to understand. And then I'm also glad to look up.
Whoever is typing, would you mind muting yourself? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
It would also be useful to look up and try and dig in a little bit more about how to outreach directly to Council Member Morales or staff. I'm willing to do a little bit of digging into that as well. That was very clearly the right advice from Councilmember Saka, was please reach out directly to Councilmember Morales. I'm glad to help, but obviously it needs to come from her committee and they need to be on that agenda. So his staff was willing to follow up and just sort of ask the question of, hey, there's supposed to be some code update. What's going on with that? But
and he's not on our
not on land use.
Yeah.
No.
So I just emailed. That was me typing. Sorry. I'm on the Rainier Valley Greenways and Safe Streets, Seattle Neighborhood Greenways group, and so I emailed someone who posts a lot there, and if so maybe he could poke on it. So we'll see.
Yeah, if it's useful to someone in the district who might be willing to partner with us, who knows where of the issue or concerned about the issue, that's always helpful to have a constituent.
Okay, so both of you are kind of like doing some research about Morales. I'll reach out to Strauss, and hopefully we'll be able to get.
I mean, Councilmember Saka offered it, being a nice offer is like, hey, Councilmember Morales' office is right next to mine. I'm glad to mention this to her that I had outreach about it. I understand it's district, but has she heard about this issue and your group's advocacy for it before? So I wanted to be able to more definitively answer that question before I made the sort of personal request.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can email her office as the chair of the committee with updates and requests for a meeting. Hopefully we'll hear something back.
I think that might actually be helpful as sort of, I suspect there's a bit of, well, this rolls up to transportation committee, so it's not actually land use, right? It's things that we need to navigate frequently. And Councilmember Saka's and his office question was like, why are you bringing this to us? This is land use, not transportation, right? I was able to bridge that because I was able to have that discussion in-person meeting, but I think had I not gone through the effort of scheduling that and a lot of outreach, I think it may have gotten dismissed of like, oh yeah, I'll forward that over to the land use committee as a concern.
Yeah. Okay.
I know annual reports next on the agenda, but this kind of, we've often found that that's the best way to raise visibility of issues like this. And Diane, have you had a chance yet? August, I think, is what we have targeted for our, outreach to council about the annual report. Is that something you could put on your list, your to-do list, to reach out and find out if we can get a slot on an August presentation? And normally we do it in front of the transportation committee, but yeah, I don't know how we reach the land use committee with this.
Well, there's not actually a lot of overlap. Councilmember Strauss and Councilmember Wu are on both committees. That is the two overlap.
Well, we could make a direct appeal to Strauss and Wu in the meeting. But yeah, also, I would really like to go in front of the SPS board. Again, it's something that we have not done last summer. We were supposed to be scheduled, and it kind of like.
I don't think they're gonna have a new policy that they don't do subcommittees anymore. They don't do committee work. They only do it through what they call an ad hoc committee, which is, very limited in scope about whatever they're wanting to work on right now. I think that's going to be very difficult.
So there is no way for us to get in front of them.
No, I don't think so. That's what Marnie found. She kept trying last year. Yeah.
So my D2 person just got back to me and says he has a meeting with Morales today and he'll bring this up. So
that's great. That I will email her today. So hopefully it will be somewhere in her peripheral vision if it comes out twice in one day. So if we can go in front of the SPS board to present, are there any other ideas of how to get our work in their, bring it to their awareness?
Is there a specific issue or two that we would, is there something that we're sort of asking? I agree that this is a good idea, right? And I'm frustrated with that there's not an avenue. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to identify if there is a more specific request, right? I'm glad to do outreach to
Mhm.
local school board member as well, right? But we need to be more concrete.
Yes, we had, I believe that last year we had specific requests. I don't know if this year we have.
Other than closing those schools is gonna be really complex for walk zone boundary planning, but I think they might know that, hopefully.
Yes, also I think on the list of arguments pro and con, the walk zone boundary.
Not gonna be
not
high.
like the
No,
top of the list.
no, I
in
understand that.
discussion. Well, if we don't have any particular ask, then
I mean, we were still, from last year, hoping to get some traction on making it easier to get bike parking installed at schools. It's something that you can do when they're built or renovated, but the process of getting SPS to actually approve it when they aren't, currently under construction is very dependent on how much time the principal is willing to put into it. And even if the principal is supportive, if they're not spearheading it, it won't happen. So, that was our direct ask is, make it.
do we have a specific school that is going through it now that we could use?
I mean, I tried to do it at Green Lake a couple of times and it just utterly
Mhm.
failed. And I've heard similar, issues from other people that if the principal is willing to take the lead on doing the paperwork, no problem. But that if it's like the head of the PTA or anybody who's not in the central office can't get
Mhm.
it done, even if the principal is willing to say like, yeah, I approve, so.
So it's all about the principal sending in the paperwork.
Yes. Yeah. It's very difficult for
For a
someone
volunteer.
for a volunteer to do it.
Yeah, which, I can kind of understand.
Yeah, but principals are busy.
Yes.
And so that was the ask, was to make it easier or, make some process that allows the principal to sign off without them having to be the one who's following up, who's actively pursuing it.
Mhm.
But
it's not just hitting send.
Yeah.
It's about the process. They need to be
Yeah.
much more involved in the process.
yeah. So that's the ask we had last year, and we have not made any traction in that.
We also haven't pushed really hard on that.
No, we kept hoping to, get in front of somebody to talk about it. That didn't seem possible.
How are we doing on the sort of various small barriers to crossing guard recruitment? The fees and the stuff. Are we?
So the fees are now waived for
Yeah.
people who ask it. I didn't sense there's a whole lot of appetite to just waive the fees altogether. And I'm not sure that right now is the right political climate to bring up.
Yeah.
Let's suck in more additional expenses that are not necessary.
One thing, Yvonne is so much institutional knowledge resides with Yvonne about the crossing guard program. And Stephen did mention to us in the last walk boundary subcommittee meeting that he was hoping to have her train someone so that there could be more institutional knowledge available so that it's not entirely dependent on her being there every day and never retiring. So that's, something that would be worth plugging a little. But again, I don't know. The staff situation is difficult right now with the budget deficit being so large.
I'm looking back on some documents that Sarah provided for me as I was onboarding, and she was looking at changing the school board policy about student wellness to include support for walking and biking to school. So that could be something that we look into with the school board.
That's new. I haven't heard
That's
that. Tell us-
interesting.
Yeah, can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, and yeah, this is as much as I know just from her document, but she said there's a school board policy about student wellness, which I can paste in the chat. And she was hoping to work on institutionalizing safe routes to school within that policy. And she just had a couple of emails back and forth, but it didn't get anywhere. So that could be something that we look at. I'm going to paste a couple things in the chat. Another thing that she did try to pursue was about the continuous school improvement plans. That would be more outreach to principals, I think.
And I assume the student wellness plan is not something that is currently reviewed. I mean, it's not on anybody's radar to amend it right now, right? Well, it can be heating it cold.
It's not something I've ever even heard about. This is new.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I see that. Yeah, there's no mention of encouraging walking or biking or rolling to school as part of a healthy lifestyle or as part of a way to encourage wellness. Okay. Interesting.
Would be tied into the students have adequate opportunity to be physically active before, during, and after school?
Yeah,
Is that
Sarah
what we're
had
into?
drafted some language just as including so students have adequate opportunities to be physically active before, during, and after school, including adequate recess and regular physical activity breaks and support for walking and biking to and from the school.
That looks like hasn't been amended since 2015.
Brooke, I'm curious, you know, what is there any way that you are planning, you know, where they're looking at a huge number of schools closed, boundaries shifted all over the place? Is there any way that you're able to plan in advance for our, you know, how to keep these walking and biking groups that you've started going with this sorts of big changes? Or is this something you're just holding off on until we know more?
Yeah, I'm unfortunately in the same boat as all of our school staff and the general public. I don't have any more information. So yeah, and I hear from, like, as I'm visiting schools, you know, I hear concern and folks checking in with each other. But I don't really have the ability to do any more planning for the walk zones at this point.
I can't imagine what it's going to be like trying to redo all of the buses district-wide. It's going to be quite a summer challenge.
Yeah, well, hopefully it's going to be a little bit more of a notice.
Yeah, well, there's a year, right? But yeah, I really suspect
Given
it's
it does nothing else, sitting on
They,
his
you know,
own.
a while to set the boundaries after all, you know, it's just, yeah.
Okay, so question to the committee. Amending the wellness plan. Is it something that we want to take on for outreach and, you know, for getting in people's faces and their awareness? Or is it not something that, given everything else that is happening in the district right now, is it not the right time for us?
I mean, it
Yeah.
seems honestly kind of low stakes. So if we feel like it's a good thing to have in place, where it seems like the sort of thing that people could be like, oh, okay, sure. I can't do anything about everything else, but sure, that's fine. But
Yeah.
also, I don't, it seems low stakes. I don't have a lot of energy to take it on myself.
It seems like an easy political win for somebody if they have the bandwidth.
I don't know. I'd say, you know, I'd agree with Margaret. It seems low stakes and probably not the right time, but that we should watch as these big, huge changes are being, you know, pushed through. There might be an opportunity as lots of transportation plans are being redone to advocate for, you know, supporting more walking and biking groups, and maybe then we would bring it up if we were having a conversation around that and you know, really able to tie it to something concrete. Yeah.
Or if there are other things going on with student health and wellness, where we can make the tie-in.
Yeah.
It seems hard to me that it's a great idea. I want to support it. I love this idea, but it seems hard to be something to push for absent some sort of specific issue to cite, or that there's other discussion going on that ties into it.
Yeah.
Okay. That is it for our agenda today.
Well, we were going to talk about the annual report, weren't we?
We kind of what?
Oh, I
Yeah.
was just saying that's the last thing on the agenda, the annual report.
Yes, but I feel like we talk now about their presentation. I was hoping to have a draft to share, but we don't. I don't. I will have a draft to share with a subcommittee by the end of the week. So hopefully we could bring it to the retreat.
Yeah. Okay.
Is there any other discussion about the annual report that we have not covered?
I mean, I think the way Margaret has been setting it up in the past, organized around specific asks and, you know, like which agency or which, you know, government body these asks pertain to is really helpful. And then celebrate the wins, of course, the school streets. Diane, do you know, when is the permanent stuff? Is any of that installed yet? It would be great to have a picture to go.
I know, they're supposed to be installed in 2024, but we'll see. It's one of those things. We'll see what the crew capacity is. We have everything in, but it's just a matter of whether or not we can actually get them in. So my sense is probably they won't go in this summer, but maybe in the fall if they're able to get in at all. But otherwise, I think the most exciting part is the art, the thermoplastic art that goes in the street. The permanent aspects of the school streets are going to look very similar to healthy streets, but we are exploring some other options at schools that need a little bit more robust closure, because it is different than a healthy street. If you want people, in some instances where they don't need buses to access that particular street, you could do a temporary closure. They do this in Europe a lot, where they have those what do you call them? They're barricades that you can roll across the street, like they're like accordion barricades that then you can push back in, you can lock them up. So that's something we've always put that out to schools as an option. We haven't had any takers yet, but for the schools that do have issues with parent drivers going through the school streets, like that would certainly be a way to create a more robust closure. So we're still working out some options for other permanent school street kind of gateway treatments. And we have 2 new schools, well, I should say just one so far that's interested in continuing on for 2025. Maple Elementary is also interested in a permanent school street. So there's like, yeah, that's just great. And what else? What are the other updates there? I think that's about it right now, but I will certainly share any photos or information about timing with those school streets, because it's near and dear to my heart, and I think really transformative for the school environment. We'll see.
Diane, can you talk a little more about the schedule? Because you had talked about how the art was really holding up the process, like doing the outreach with the kids and then figuring out how to convert that into the thermoplastic pieces and stuff but it sounds like maybe there's another delay there when you're looking at the other physical improvements. Just understanding more about what's taking so long would be helpful, because
the physical improvements are going to go in. We already have a plan for those. Like, I've already submitted all of my paperwork on my end. It's just a matter of crew capacity. So they have a ton of projects before the levy expires in 2024 to get finished. So that's the only thing that could potentially push them into 2025. The art piece, I'm working with Debbie and Cisco, who does all of the art for SDOT, like all of the painted, all the thermoplastic murals in the street, any of that stuff he's done. And unfortunately, one of our vendors, or our main vendor, NS Flint, was acquired, and we're no longer working with them. So all the estimates for how much it was going to cost changed, of course. So we're able to do a lot less. We're trying to stretch out the dollars that we have devoted to art. So there's a little bit of a delay there. But we have the designs for the most part. We're working with Whittier on modifying their design, but the design for Emerson and Genesee Hill is mostly set. It's just a matter of potentially having to kind of winnow it down a little bit, depending on the cost that he's able to actually, the final cost estimate.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so then with the crew capacity, would you say that this is kind of a like one-time situation with this rush to get the levy projects done first? Or is this more of a like, this is kind of how it goes, crews are very busy, this is what we should expect permanently?
No, it feels like this is particular to this year, trying to wrap up all the projects with the levy.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because typically we do things almost 2 years in advance. So there's plenty of notice. They can schedule, they can put in the work order, do all the things that they need to do on their end, and we're able to commit to those delivery dates. But in this case, there's sort of nothing that I can do.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I mean, for the annual report,
ahead.
do we want to, are there other categories? I mean, we could look at what we had last time, crossings off.
I really like the way you put it together last time, kind of like the logic of the flow.
Mhm.
And I'll be following it.
Okay.
Last year we did have a direct ask to WashDOT, though we didn't make any headway in getting on the radar.
Well, we had the walkthrough, with WashDOT and SDOT looking at the freeway conditions, which was, at least an opportunity, like, because previously we'd gotten communication back, like, nothing on city streets has anything to do with us, even if the speeding is because people are like, 10 feet off of a highway off ramp, right? So there was some coordination there. It would be great to find a way to keep building that and get that joint recognition of the problem, which is one of those things where everybody's like, not my job, right? So that's a little bit of an improvement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts about big wins, big struggles this year we haven't covered yet in the conversation? Okay,
The big struggle is the situation at Alki being completely stalled by this issue that we have been pressing on. So I feel like
yes, and I think it's a great, great case study, right? Because the problem is a problem that was there before, but now it really helps crystallize
yeah,
Yeah,
our position, our longstanding position.
yeah.
I want some more positive case studies. So, Dan, I'm sure will come up with some good ones. It'll be great. But that is a very clear.
Yeah, I
situation.
mean, we could point to some of the, I wonder if we can find specific projects or, as I said, we're finding improved street conditions in a lot of places in Southeast Seattle around schools to the extent that we're looking at eliminating some crossing guard spots. So I'd say that's, really a testimony to the work that SDOT's been doing over the last year. So we could definitely point to that as a win that, that engineering intervention really does make the streets safer and eliminates the need for adults out there with signs and vests and things,
I think that's awesome and huge. We could also do that traffic light that at up at the high school up in near Northgate.
Um,
The traffic light, the one,
Yeah,
what we had that,
what is it, 130th?
Ingram.
Ingram.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ingram.
what was I thought
The one that
the
Director Spots was talking about, like adding a cross light to help
oh yeah,
kids cross. Now kids run the light, but that's a different problem.
But yeah, no, I mean that's the kind of investment that
Yeah.
pays off. Like,
Yeah.
there's like, oh, we have to put more money to put in a crossing light, but then it really pays off. So yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And
we
a
might
thought-
want, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say another one to highlight would be the stop sign in front of James Ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's, because that's one where the stop sign policy was changed, and then there was still this kind of weird hole in the policy, and then through Diane's amazing work, they let us put that stop sign in. So I think we should just say, we really appreciate that continued look at the appropriateness of the policies and willingness to put in those traffic calming solutions.
And actually, on this month, you had another stop sign success, right? What was it? The woman from, where was she from?
Oh,
know
I'm not
what-
remembering this. No. There was another always stop that we were able to put in, or that we are going to?
No, just a stop sign. A woman reached out to you in UC Sydney.
Oh, geez. There's so many. It's hard to keep track.
No, but you were able to hey, just want to let you know that I looked into it and we're getting a stop sign there.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
Hamilton Middle School.
Yeah, that's right. On Wallingford, right?
Yeah. 42nd
Yeah.
and Wallingford.
Yeah. So it's not a stop sign; it's a crosswalk.
That's okay.
But it's across from a park. So the policy has shifted a little bit in terms of what's a tier 1 or tier 2 generator. So in that case, I was able to reach out to my colleague who does pedestrian crossings, and she was like, "Yeah, that's a no-brainer. That makes sense." So there's now going to be a crosswalk going in. Great.
Yeah.
And more than anything else, here's another example of somebody reaching out and getting a really quick positive feedback of city's taking care of it. So thank you, Dan, for doing it. Also, shout out, please, if any of you have minors that you're able to photograph and send photos of them doing alternative transportation activities to get different pictures in the annual report, that'd be great. Anybody that you can sign a photo release waiver form.
I might be able to get that for a group of kids walking down to school. I'm assuming it's okay if we're photographing them, especially from the back, right? I know we still need to release, we need
Yes.
from parents, but that might be very helpful. It's like, yep, a group of kids walking, parents walking to school, right? But they're not identifiable.
I know, Ryan, I was just wondering, since we have a few more minutes, because you're on the Parks board now, I'm wondering if you're finding that there are many opportunities for, you know,
I'm on the,
crosswork.
thank you. I'm on the Parks Board as of about, 5 days, and
Okay.
have the first meeting here on this Thursday. So I'm still very much sort of getting to get up speed with even just sort of processes and agendas on the Parks Board. But I did cite that in my actual application as opportunity. And I did meet with one of the co-chairs of the board who agreed with me, and also found that to be a open opportunity for collaboration. So definitely something I will stay attuned to, and I'm very interested in seeing if there are some opportunities. It's my remark was, it continues to surprise me that we have all these parks immediately bordering schools, and that there isn't doesn't seem to be more collaboration between them, and that seems to be a great opportunity. So, and we have kids going through parks to schools over and over again, right? It's on the walking routes. So I'm excited about it. Thank you. Nothing to share yet.
Anything else to share? Thoughts, concern, future topics? Mary Ellen, I could hear your brain. No? Okay.
Nope, that was my last one.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up earlier. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you in June.
In person, right?
In person.
If you can, and we'll plan to get coffee after. I'll be going. I hope everybody else will.
Sounds
And
good.
hopefully,
Thank you.
coffee in City Hall is going to be open this time.
Yeah,
You
hopefully
won't
so.
have to go all the way to Columbia Tower.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, all.
Bye.